Welcome back to Cursed Convos. It's Lil Chips with your boy.
Something sick. What's poppin'? What's the weirdest case you've seen or heard about when it comes to crime scenes and whatnot? Like, do you ever watch that shit on YouTube? The body cam footage stuff?
No, but I did watch one the other day because I don't usually watch them, but there was one case that was popping for a minute. It was about a woman who had her kids in the back of her trunk, like,
Dude.
and yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right?
I was just about to say that. That was the one I was gonna bring up. It wasn't her kids.
Yeah.
It was like her nieces and nephew.
Oh, okay,
Niece
I
and
got you.
nephew.
Yeah, well, it was something. Yeah, that one was pretty disturbing though. Like, jeez.
For real, like, no, it's dirty clothes that's been in there for months
Yeah.
and months and months.
Mm-hmm.
Like, bitch. Oh, and she tried to run too. Like,
Dude,
oh,
for real.
hell no. I'm tackling that bitch. Shit, imagine just being one of those officers too. Just like,
No, yeah, like that one officer who was losing his cool. Like, bro, I don't
Yeah.
fucking blame him. You know what I'm saying? Like, bro, like imagine you're seeing like chopped up. Were they chopped up? I don't know if they were chopped up or not. But like kids, you know, in trash bags and like, come on, dude. Like that's fucked up. Especially like having them like sit in your trunk for months. Like, what the fuck, you know?
sounds kind of wrong, but like, wouldn't she like have them like discarded by then or buried somewhere? Maybe she just panicked and didn't know what to do with the bodies.
Yeah,
Something?
I'm pretty sure that's. I mean, either that or she's just fucking sadistic as hell and just wanted to keep him around, which is even more fucked up to think about, you know?
Ugh,
So,
that is.
I mean,
psycho.
I'm just gonna assume that because I haven't followed up on the case, so I don't know anything about it. But, yeah, she probably just didn't know what to do with them, so she just writed them out. Basically, you know, was writing it out until she got caught. Basically, so
Well, thankfully she did. Like, fuck.
no, fuck yeah, dude. Especially with what, like, apparently it was so bad that it was like sticking to her body, and that's why they practically pretty much told her to step out. I think so.
Oh, like the
Don't-
smell. The smell
Yeah,
sticking to her. Yeah.
the smell of decay. Like it was like basically like embedded in her clothes. Like that's how like bad it was.
God damn. That's one thing I'm curious about. Like, I want to know how that shit smells like, because apparently it's like unique and like you won't forget it.
You never smell like roadkill or something? Like it's kind of
No.
similar.
I don't think I've ever been next to roadkill. Like, I just kind of like drove past it, but like, oh damn, there's a deer right there, you know?
True. I mean, I guess because usually like they usually do tend to pick it up before it gets pretty bad. I'm pretty sure like community service and shit. But I mean, I think I might have smelled it once, but that was like back whenever I had that land and shit. There was like something dead, like a mouse or some shit. It smells pretty bad.
Fudge.
Yeah.
But alright, fuck it. Let's get right into the stories.
Yeah, what do we got today, sick? No, just kidding.
We got 2 stories for y'all today. Starting with the first one. It's written by the_Whitemare. And it's called, I've worked as a crime scene investigator for 25 years. This is my weirdest case. On the 25th of November, 2018, the victim pulled into a budget motel in the early hours of the morning. He booked room 12 for a 3-day stay, and on the 4th day, the owner of the establishment sent his son to check on the victim. What he found was something that someone his age should never have witnessed, or anyone for that matter. By the time I arrived at the scene, it had already been cordoned off. Members of the county police department had swarmed the area in the absence of the sun. It was the blue and red flashing lights that cast their glow over the building. I made my way past the tenants who were half asleep, doing their best at giving witness testimonial. I stepped by a particularly shaken forensic pathologist who was trying to call his mother and entered room 12. Now, I've been working as a crime scene investigator for more than 20 years. I have dealt with some truly confounding scenes before. In 2006, a body of a missing hiker was found in the woods just on the county line. It had been burnt to a crisp, but only the upper half. Below the waist was completely untouched, as was the surrounding area. More recently, a farmer reported a break-in just after New Year's Eve. Presumably, someone had broken into his warehouse, which housed an industrial animal carcass shredder. It had been used in the night, and a pile of jellied flesh was found clumped at its mouth. Horrifically, it was eventually proven to be human, although couldn't be identified beyond that. Only one other thing was found at the scene. Within the remains was a small steel plaque about the size of a business card, with the number 0002916 engraved in it. I say all this for simple context. I am no stranger to the unexplainable, but what I saw in room 12, it still keeps me up at night. The following are excerpts from the crime scene report I filed that day. Incident number 24-0711. Date of incident November 29th, 2018. Time of arrival 11:54 p.m. Location room 12, Sir Sleep-A-Lot Motel, Yellow Smoke County. Reporting officer Detective Arthur Graham, Yellow Smoke County Police Department. Victim name John Doe. Name yet to be confirmed through fingerprint or DNA. Gender male. Age estimated to be mid-40s. Occupation unknown. Suspects none at present. The victim checked into the Sir Sleep-A-Lot Motel on the morning of November 25th, 2018. He informed the motel owner, Mr. John Kelly, that he would be staying for 3 days. No known associates or visitors during the stay. Victim was found laying on bed in supine position. And for those who don't know, supine position is basically laying flat on your back. Yeah, so.
Yeah, we get it.
Yeah, don't act like you knew that. Don't act like you knew that.
Damn, you like we fucking stupid or something. Nah, I'm just kidding.
Victim had skin removed crudely. Patches of flesh hang loosely, revealing bone in some areas. Teeth indents on the right part of his pelvic bone will be examined. The victim's head is absent from the scene. Notably, the body had been dressed in what appeared to be women's undergarments. Specifically, a pair of lace stockings and a torn satin slip. Neither items of clothing belonged to the victim. The body was likely dressed post-mortem. Marks on the right part of pelvic bone were positively identified as being from a human juvenile, estimated as between the ages of 3 and 6. No dental record had been traced. Blood covers every inch of the room's 4 walls and carpet. The blood spray appears to be inconsistent with splatter from traumatic injury, possible use of pressurized device. The amount of blood was determined to be approximately 2 gallons, or 135% of the victim's total volume. Teeth were found on the room's desk, 33 in total, arranged into a circular pattern 10 inches in diameter. The careful arrangement appears to be ritualistic. The teeth are currently assumed to have been belonging to the victim. The location of the victim's head has not been identified. The findings of the forensic odontologist have determined that 32 of the 33 teeth belonged to a person matching the victim's description, a Caucasian male in his 40s. One of the teeth matches a younger Caucasian female. It was eventually connected through dental records to be from 24-year-old Alyssa Handeland, reported missing in 1997. The Handeland case was archived in 1999 due to absence of evidence. Dang, this guy can go back and forth through time, possibly? Or maybe he's just an entity that kept those things. I don't know, it is weird.
Yeah, but that's not... You act like the guy's 100 years old. It's only been 3 decades.
You think a fucking elderly person would be doing this shit?
Huh? There's some old serial killers. Like, you never seen Dexter? Freaking Trinity Killer was like freaking 60 something, 70 something, and still murdering. Like, hello.
All right, okay, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
you think they'll do some shit like that, like putting teeth in a circle?
Yes.
Well, yeah, probably.
If well, that would be their signature. Like, that's their mark. You know, I'd be like, hey, I just killed this person. Like, here's my signature. That's why it's usually either trophies, signatures, or something that they usually intend to leave behind if they're a serial killer.
True.
You're like, you never heard that one case of the weeping killer? Like, he would always like kill someone, and then after he killed someone, he would
call the
like
police station,
pretty much
right?
like call in himself. Yeah, he would call the police station. He would just start crying, confessing to the murder, but they would never catch him.
Yeah, that is fucking crazy.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, they each have their own niche that they do after taking someone's life, which is fucking sick.
No,
But yeah. So, anyways, let's continue.
The victim's tongue was discovered in the bathroom sink, exhibiting a complete severance at the base. The incision appeared clean and precise, suggesting the use of a surgical grade or extremely sharp cutting instrument. Notably, the tongue was found in isolation within the sink, devoid of any other biological material, indicating that it may have been intentionally relocated post-excision. First responders noted signs of tampering on the coin-operated television in the room, which intermittently activated to static approximately once an hour. The television would be deconstructed for forensic examination to recover latent fingerprints and other trace evidence related to its manipulation. Both of the victim's eyes were recovered from the interior of the room's coin-operated television. The television screen had been removed, and the eyes were placed within the cavity where the cathode ray tube was situated. This positioning suggests deliberate placement, indicating a possible symbolic motive. The only item of clothing found at the scene belonging to the victim was one pair of denim jeans, which witness John Kelly recalls being worn by the victim the morning he checked in. The jeans were contaminated with the victim's blood. In the pockets were found a one-way bus ticket from the towns of Cosgrave to Mayor's Income, one packet of apple-flavored gum, and a button. No other possessions of the victim were found. A pair of small, leather lace-up shoes were found at the foot of the bed. From the lack of bloodstains, we could assume the shoes were placed there after the homicide. Addendum A. A shirt, likely belonging to the victim, was found 3 weeks later, partially buried in a field in San Tomaso, a small town 240 miles south of Yellow Smoke. The shirt matched the description given by John Kelly of the victim. Blood samples taken from the shirt were a strong match to those taken from the crime scene, although without the identity of the victim, a definitive link is challenging to corroborate. Addendum B. The small shoes found at the crime scene were dated to 1909 and determined to have some value among antique dealers. Due to their small size, they can be assumed to be children's shoes. Okay, so 1909, that is far back. Way far back.
Now that's like 100 years already.
Yeah. So
yes. Now your earlier statement would make sense. Okay, if it
here,
says early, now the only, because there's always got to be a logical meaning. Okay, so my thing would be maybe it's a generational thing. You get what I mean? Like, let's say that stopped after 50 years because that main person who started it died. All right, so then he had maybe a kid or something, and then it pretty much passed it down, and that's why it's keep going. You know what I mean? Like, that's one plausible thing that could happen, or it could just be a freaking vampire or something. You know what I mean?
Like some entity or. But now that is interesting.
even
Like
an
the
entity.
generation of serial killers. Yeah. That sounds cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is true. Or it could be what you said. You know, like I mean, entity. Like I mean, it would either have to be like a vampire or there was something else I was gonna say. Something else that lives long. Fuck you.
Like a demon, right?
No. Well, I guess, but like you know how the ritual thing was mentioned.
Yeah. That's why I said.
Like, what if that's the thing? You know, like the ritual that he's doing, taking a life to gain more life. You know what I mean?
Ooh.
Top deal.
That's a good theory.
Yes, sir.
All right, well, we'll see what's up. The room showed no obvious signs of damage. The furniture appeared to have been undisturbed, although a Bible was missing from the bedside cabinet.
It's always the Bible.
Neither John Kelly nor his son David, lead witnesses of the case, recall seeing the victim with any luggage. For this reason, it is unclear if his possessions were taken or if he simply had none to begin with. The motive of this homicide remains unclear. I'll save you the rest of the procedural formalities. I've lost track of how many nights I've spent awake, staring at my computer screen, reading and rereading this report. It stayed with me for the past 6 years, constantly at the back of my mind. At my personal behest, the case remained open despite insufficient evidence and a complete lack of any leads. When it was finally shelved at the beginning of this year, they were no closer to solving it than we were the day we found him. Earlier this week, I learned that it had been reopened by the FBI. I assumed that there must be someone else in this department who felt the same way about the case as I did, strong enough to reach out and request assistance from the feds. I was tasked with compiling any and all digital evidence we had on the case onto a USB flash. I felt weird combing through all the reports, files, and forensics. It felt like I was visiting an old friend. I added the documents I wrote up on the day, the dozens of crime scene photos and witness statements. I studied them all meticulously myself. I doubted some Yale boy with a coroner office could do any better. I kept trailing through the earmarked files, checking and double-checking if there was anything I'd missed. It was dark now. I spent the day working from home, hunched over my computer in my sorry excuse for a library. That's what my job mostly consists of now. I couldn't wait for retirement. Maybe then I would have taken the time to read some of these books I have been lying about. I decided I was finished for the night. I'd squeeze every piece of relevant information I could find onto that hard drive. It was up to the FBI now. I only hoped that if our victim left any family behind, they could one day get some closure from this. I was about to shut my computer down when something caught my eye. Witness_1.mp3. It was an audio file. Somehow I hadn't noticed it before. Hell, I don't think I had even listened to it before. To my knowledge, all the witness statements taken that night were written. I clicked on it, figuring it must have been taken from David Kelly, the kid who'd found the body. I took a sip of my last dregs of coffee and sat back in my chair, jacking up the volume. The audio wasn't the best quality. It was shouted in the static of an analog recording, and to my shock, the supposed first witness had a woman's voice. The following is a transcript of what was on that file. First responder. What were you doing in the area before you discovered the body? I'm staying in room 14, the room next door to where it happened. Been there for the past 2 weeks, thereabout. I've come on hard times recently. You know how it is. I was living out of a van until this. It wasn't exactly reliable. Apologies, ma'am. I meant, what were you doing immediately before discovering the body? Right. Well, I came back from work around 9. I cleaned at the elementary school in town. I came back and spent the rest of my day in my room. I had dinner, and I was just catching up with the news before I went to sleep. Can you describe how and when you found the body? Gee, it must have been around 10. I was turning in for the night when I heard a banging noise from next door. I guessed he must have brought a lady friend over or so. I tried my best to ignore it.
She was getting off.
But it kept getting louder.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't sound like a headboard neither. More like someone chopping wood. It was too much for me to ignore, so I got up to go complain. I found the door unlocked, and it opened wide up when I knocked. That's when I saw him. That poor man. Could you please describe the scene you came across as detailed as you can? It was terrible. Just terrible. I saw my neighbor kneeling in the corner of his room. His head had been cut off. Can you imagine that? There was blood covering everything around him. I almost vomited there and then. Then I saw the man in the bathroom. There's a pause. Could you please go on? You said there was someone else at the scene? Yeah, a real weirdo. I didn't notice him at first. He was just peeking out from behind the bathroom door, watching me. When I did finally notice him, we just stared at each other for a moment or two. Then he just strolled out from his little hiding place. Another pause. Please, continue. I assure you everything you have to say will be of some importance to our investigation. Start by describing this man you saw. Okay, then. He was a freak. I'll say it. When I got a good look at him, I saw he had this great bulbous head. He was bald as a newborn, and the entire back part of his head was all deformed and sagging down. I think he had this disease. Oh, what's it called? A boy I went to school with had it. Are you thinking of hydrosyphilis? Yes, yeah, that's it. Hydrosyphilis. But it was much worse than that kid I knew. Sorry if I'm coming across as rude, but it looked like some horrible octopus.
Damn.
And the front part of his head was far too thin. He has this pointy chin and cheekbones. His eyes were as bulging as his skull, all yellow and white. I think he had cataracts. Oh, and he must have been around 7 feet tall, at least. He was hunching over when he met the ceiling. This motherfucker sounds like an alien. He's an alien.
I don't think aliens go that far.
Can you describe what he was wearing? Sure, he had this battered old mustard coat on. It was black, but he was covered in these stitched rags of red and green. The coat hung down to the floor, but I could make out the tips of brown leather boots poking out from the hem. Can you... Oh, pardon my interrupting, but the man, he was holding this, well, I don't know what it was. It looked like a lobster pot with a handle and must be 24 blades sticking out of it. Knives mostly, and razor blades, axe heads, chains, that sort of stuff. Anyways, go on. Right. What did you do when he came closer to you? Well, I ran. I just ran. Out of the motel and down the road until I realized everything I owned was in my room. I didn't fancy having to start over from nothing for a third time, so I came back. And that's when you bumped into me. Alright. And how long was it from discovering the body until you called 911? Oh, I didn't call 911, honey. You didn't? Oh, no. By the time I came back from my little jog, the place was already crawling with police. I still haven't been allowed back into my room. Are you aware that... And his speech became muffled after that, until the recording was nothing but static hum that had been in the background since the beginning. After hearing this for the first time, I didn't know what to think. I just sat in my old oak chair until my wife came in to tell me that she was going to bed. I kissed her goodnight and went back to aimlessly staring at the computer screen. Eventually, I closed it and stood up. I took the USB stick and left it on my desk. I left the room and locked the door behind me. I changed, washed, and climbed into the bed with my wife. I kissed her in the back of her neck and tried to fall asleep. That thing that did this was still out there, but that wasn't my problem anymore. And that was the end of I've worked as a crime scene investigator for over 25 years. This is my weirdest case. And
yes,
rightfully it was. That is crazy.
So we didn't even find out what the fudge did it.
I don't know. From the description, it sounds like something otherworldly. Like I said, an alien or some sort. Or
I mean, okay, we don't really know how aliens, work, but if they are doing fucking rituals and shit like that, that is kind of creepy to think about, because that is kind of out of the realm that usual people think that aliens do. You know what I mean?
No, you're right. That is weird. I forgot the ritual symbolic things that they did.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think they would just kill something and leave it there. So I feel like it is weird to like say, hey, this might be an alien.
No,
So
you're right. I was going based on the facial features and shit that it looked like an octopus. I'm like, oh gosh, that might be an alien. But yeah, it could very well be like since it was like a ritualistic kind of thing, maybe like a fucked up demon.
I swear to God, if it's a skinwalker, bro.
I mean,
that was my first thought. I was like, bro, don't tell me it's a skinwalker story. Yeah.
Nah, usually they kind of like
livid.
trick their victims, right? To make it seem like they're family or whatever.
Yeah.
Someone they know.
Like, who's to say, like, that's not how they look without being shapeshift,
Their original form. Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, that was good. That was a good story. I liked it.
Yeah, good creepy case. Can always appreciate a cop case.
And on to the second story. This one's called Being a Medium is No Fun. This woman hired me to find who killed her parents. And before we jump into this, I know your mom is kind of like somewhat of a medium herself. Do you have any moments or stories you could share with us?
One thing was like there was a murder or something that went happen that went on. I don't know who it was about, but there was something, and she had saw it on the news, and she's like, oh, like I think I can find like kind of where this girl's at, But the thing is, like, she tries to stay away from it because like once you acknowledge that they're gone and they haven't been found yet, that's kind of where it gets dicey and shit, So she usually tries not to acknowledge like dead people that way, because then they just linger and they want to be obviously like heard. But anyways, moving on. Yeah, there's the girl. So obviously she acknowledged her death, and then apparently like the girl ended up like coming to our house, and mom was like, so it was weird, because I was like laying on the couch, and I heard some like knocks at the door, and I was like, fuck, and this was like couple hours after the case went on. And so I was like, she bro, like I got all scared. I was like, hey, I went to go tell my mom. I was like, hey, there's like someone knocking at the door. And she's like, okay, we'll just like peek out the window and see who it is. And there was no one outside, bro. Like I checked outside. I went to like the room because I can kind of had like a decent view of the door. Nobody was there. And then I checked like the actual window in the living room. Nobody out there. I was like, what the fuck, so I just ignored it. And then the door handle started jiggling, like somebody was like trying to open it. I was like, what the fuck? And so that's whenever like I went to go tell her, like, hey, I think someone's actually like trying to break in. And so she like got up and she went to go look out the window, like she fully opened it, and there was no one there. There was no one fucking there. I was like, what the hell?
And keep in mind, like the entrance to your house is like way far back than like your actual front door, so
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I just wanted to make that clear, so like obviously the listeners
like at the
know.
time, yeah at the time, yeah. So we were like pretty in there, you know what I mean? So it kind of be hard to like run away in that amount of time, or anything. So it was weird, but yeah. So So she ended up like just opening the door to see who was outside, and nobody was there. And then she kind of like told me, she's like, oh, I think it was like that presence of that girl who was like I was talking about earlier, because I did see her before I went to bed, and she was like trying to get me to notice her, but I don't want to acknowledge her because then she's just gonna keep pestering me until, like, no disrespect, you know, but like she's gonna keep pestering me until like I do something or acknowledge her and be like, hey, I'll try to do something to find you, you know.
Or like
that takes a lot of energy, you know what I mean?
Oh, true.
So that was like, I guess, one of the weirder things that went on that she's told me about. Hopefully I explained that good.
I mean, yeah, it's interesting as hell, you know, like, whoa. Shit, I mean, if I was a medium, I would want to like try to like help him out to figure out who did this to her and maybe like bring that guy to justice, you know? But if you're saying it takes a lot of energy, I don't know how that feels on her, you know? So
yeah, I mean, I don't know how like all that works, but I mean, obviously it takes a lot of spiritual power in order to do things like that, you know what I mean?
And now, from being a descendant from her, do you feel like you ever had these moments where you're like kind of connected to the spiritual world or anything?
I wouldn't be straight up. I just don't give a shit. Nah, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
No. Okay, so I will say this. I have asked about it, you know, if I have that power, but she says that yes and no, that I probably could do it, but it's a bad thing if I do it because since I wouldn't be able to have a control over it, like I could probably let things in that wouldn't be so friendly. You know what I mean? Like pretty much like I don't have my power under control, so there's no point in doing it without like obviously like working for it, and I just don't really rather not deal with all that. You know what I mean? I feel like it would be cool to have, but nah. Cause there I did try it once. Oh, it was whenever I had I think it might have been sleep paralysis, but it's weird. I know you're like, oh, well, sleep paralysis is different. Of course you're gonna see shit, you know. But like that night, I was like, damn, you know, I was curious about like the wonder if I could do power. I don't know why. It was weird. It just kind of happened. So I was like, okay, maybe like, hey, spirit, you know, like fucking astral project and stuff. It's kind of maybe amongst the lines of it. So I was like, hey, maybe if I like try to astral project, I might be able to tap into something. And so that's all I was hard focused on. And then I ended up like falling asleep, and then I got sleep paralysis. And then I was like, hell no, that shit's scary as fuck. I felt like there was a big ass like Slender Man looking creature with long ass arms all up in me. That shit was scary as fuck, bro. But no, yeah, so I ended up mentioning it to her, and she's like, yeah, like I'd rather not do it, because if you just kind of go in like blindly, like you could let things in or open portals to places you don't want to open to, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's like a very sketchy thing to do. Like it's just stuff you don't want to mess with, you know what I mean? It's basically black magic in a way. Yeah, you don't want to give up that power over you. So, because I mean, if obviously you're the medium, you're basically like the spiritual handler. Yeah, essentially
between their world and our world. Yeah. Yo. But yeah, I mean, yeah, like that. I think that's enough talk about the spiritual realm. Let's just get to the story. This one's written by accomplished_low7889, and it's called Being a Medium is No Fun. This woman hired me to find who killed her parents. Lana Dawson welcomed me with a tired smile. She was desperate, like everyone who hires a medium, and I was just as desperate, which is why I was back to this gig. Trying other jobs only confirmed that I wouldn't make a living doing anything else. Lana hired me because it had been 20 years since her parents were brutally murdered in that house, a crime that remained unsolved despite an extensive police investigation. She was 15 at the time, and luckily at her grandma's. She tried private detectives before, and they found nothing. In the end, I imagine reluctantly, she found me through a friend of a friend. Good thing for her, I needed the money, and booked my flight right away. It was a typical home in a quiet Florida suburb, surrounded by mostly vacant houses. Lana decided to never sell it, keeping it frozen in time, perhaps hoping someday it would help her find the truth. As she led me inside, an old woman next door was watering her plants, the only neighbor left. She glanced over and gave me a polite wave. "This is a peaceful neighborhood of mostly widows and retirees," Lana explained later. "Nothing like that ever happened before or after." The sorrow still present on her face was undeniable even after all these years. The living room was completely empty. Not even spiders roamed around. There was just dust and a single light bulb no one had ever bothered to take down. Lana pulled back the curtain, flooding the space with sunlight, probably for the first time in ages. She gave me a quick tour through the kitchen and bedrooms. I could tell she wasn't very hopeful that I'd find anything, and I couldn't blame her. Never promise a client results. That's a rule I learned early on. Most of the haunted houses I visit have nothing to see. Either the dead moved on, or they simply don't want to be disturbed. Not the kind of pitch that brings in clients. But spirits tend to remain where they died. The energy of death clings to a place, anchoring them there. If Lana's parents still lingered in this house, they could talk to me. I asked her for a chair and placed it in the center of the living room. "I'll try to channel the voices of the spiritual world now," I told her. "So please, we need to remain silent." That was just a fancy way of telling her to stay quiet so I could hear if any dead would actually talk. I sat down and closed my eyes. For several minutes, I waited in silence, hearing nothing but the wind and birds outside. I was ready to give up and explain to Lana my no refund policy when I heard a faint weeping. It was soft, almost inaudible, and gradually grew louder. "Is there something here among us?" I called out firmly. The crying stopped, and a metallic, ethereal voice asked, "Can you hear me?" "Yes, I can. Who are you?" No response. The entity resumed crying. I explained what I heard to Lana, who was now slightly more excited by the discovery. It could be her family. "Please, tell me. Are you Mr. or Mrs. Dawson?" I tried. The weeping stopped abruptly. "Do you know where Mrs. Dawson is?" the voice asked. "I want to tell her I'm sorry." "What do you mean? Sorry for what?" The light flickered for a second, and I saw the curtains shift slightly before the answer came. "For what I did to her," the voice confessed, its tone laced with sorrow. "For killing her the way I did." I felt my heart pound in my chest and turned to Lana. "I don't think this is your family." Now, in my experience, spirits can be deceitful. It wouldn't be the first time some smart-ass ghost tried to play me for a fool. So I didn't immediately relay all I had heard to Lana. She would probably freak out anyway, and I needed her to stay quiet for the rest of the session. "Who are you?" I asked next, to no response. "Do you know what happened that day?" I tried again. This time, after a long pause, the voice answered. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that," it murmured. "She shouldn't have had to die." That was an interesting response. "What about Mr. Dawson?" I asked. "The man got what he deserved." The voice suddenly deepened, taking on an almost demonic tone. The light bulb flickered violently. Its reaction made sense, based on what I had read about the crime scene. Mr. Dawson had died from 15 stab wounds, most likely in his bed. The killer was probably driven by emotion. But Mrs. Dawson showed signs of a struggle. Her only fatal injury was a deep slice across her neck. Maybe her death wasn't intentional at first. This could actually be the murderer. But why did you do it? I decided it was time for tough questions. I just want to help you find peace. It's the only way you'll leave this house and see her again. There was a long silence. Then it spoke, its words thick with emotion. Because I loved her more than anything. I used to watch her every day, getting in her car, walking the dog, buying groceries. She did it all with that same smile. When she waved at me, I felt it in my bones. That doesn't explain why you killed her, I pressed. My questions likely revealed the true nature of the voice to Lana, and her eyes widened in shock. I didn't want to, the voice roared. The bulb exploded, making Lana jump. I just wanted to get rid of him so we could be together. But she wouldn't accept it. She wouldn't come with me. The weeping resumed. I pressed for more answers, but got nothing. Everything I had heard spun in my head like a whirlwind. When everything clicked, I stood up and walked to the door. Lana was pale as snow, visibly shaken by what had happened. Even if she hadn't heard a word, the energy in the room was impossible to ignore. She asked me why I was leaving. I'm just thirsty, I casually said. There's no running water here, so I'll ask that old lady next door for a glass. I'll be back in a minute. The neighbor looked surprised to see me knocking on her door. She was a tiny, fragile lady, maybe in her 70s. She was making bread dough, but stopped to answer and invited me in for some water. As I followed her to the kitchen, I took a look at her home. Furniture that had to be at least half a century old, and a large portrait in the living room of her and her husband, taken long ago. She handed me a glass of water and went back to kneading the fresh dough. I hope you don't mind me doing this, she said, using all her small weight against it. I just love having them ready for dinner. Don't mind me at all. I thanked her, sipping the water slowly. By the way, you and your husband are so beautiful together in that photo, I said, referring to the portrait. Her face stiffened for a brief moment before returning to its usual warm smile. She confessed to me he had abandoned her years ago, but it was hard to let go of the memories. One day he simply got out and never returned. Determined to change the subject, she asked me what I was doing in that dusty, abandoned house. I told her I was a medium. Oh, that's fun, she giggled. Did you find anything there? Yes, as a matter of fact, I did, I answered. I found your husband. He told me a lot about you, about him, and about what he did to the Dawson family. She froze, hands still buried in the dough. Slowly, she turned around, scanning my face to see if I was joking, if I really knew the truth about what had happened 20 years ago. I didn't. It was a bluff, an educated guess. For the killer to be a spirit trapped in that house, he had to have died nearby. For him to know the private details of Mrs. Dawson's life, he had to be someone that lived close, someone who could watch her every move, like a neighbor, and there were not many of them around here. I had no idea it would work. My theory could be pretty much wrong, but the bluff paid off, because the woman broke down in tears. For Lana, finding the truth was all that mattered, and I gave it to her. Her family had been killed by a neighbor obsessed with her mother. In an act of desperation, he took advantage of the night to break into the house and confess his feelings just as she had gone to the kitchen for a glass of water. When she rejected him, he grabbed her and slit her throat with a sharp fish knife. Then, in a fit of rage, he walked into the bedroom where her father slept and stabbed him to death. It took me a few more sessions with the killer to get the whole truth out. The old lady confirmed and admitted to Lana that she had suspected her husband all along, and when she confronted him, he fled, never to be found, probably dying somewhere years later. The end. Or at least, that's the end I told Lana. I can't say she was happy about it, but at least she knew now. There could finally be peace. What I didn't tell her was that the husband never fled, and his wife didn't simply confront him with words. When he arrogantly admitted to the crime, showing no remorse, she shot him with the handgun they kept under the bed and buried him in the backyard. I advised the woman to lie to Lana, keeping her safe from any legal trouble. That way, everything would end up in its right place. The old woman in her home, the husband trapped inside that house, drowning in his regrets. Fuck his peace. And that was the end of Being a Medium is No Fun. This woman hired me to find who killed her parents. Straight wild. I would probably do the same, but I mean, yeah, having the repercussions fall onto you, that would suck. But if I got away like she did, then I mean, shit, yeah, I would kill the husband too, especially when he's not showing no remorse. And be like, what? How dare you like another woman than me?
No, you can finally have all the holes you wanted.
Right.
So there was another thing. Okay, so there was a case I was like, listening. God, it's just about cases, huh? Maybe I do listen to more cases than I think. So that's what I was gonna ask. Like, do you think like mediums are like a valuable source to rely on if you can't, like, to help pretty much like progress a case?
In my opinion, any help is help, you know? Any piece of information they have, like, why not? Especially on cold cases when they have nothing else to go to, you know? But I will admit, they do come out short to where they're just like, yo, this is not good. But I also heard of cases that they actually do come out with helpful information. But the whole thing that makes me like skeptical about it, you know, Houdini, obviously the famous Houdini, he made it a point to debunk these mediums and people that were bullshitting in order to get some money out of the grieving families that they're just trying to get their last says, you know, or whatever. By like after he died, he told his wife that he would say a certain phrase, and that if I didn't say that certain phrase, then it's all BS. And sure enough, his wife went around to multiple spiritualists / mediums and say, hey, what's Houdini trying to say to me? Like, I'm trying to get a read. And they would never say the certain phrase that they had with each other to prove that it's real. He told her that if he could, he would send the phrase, Rosabelle, believe. But no medium could relay this code back to her, thus debunking the whole mediums could talk to the dead, which is hardcore. You know, it's like, holy, he made it his life accomplishment to like debunk these guys / gals. And you know what? That's respect, because like you're just making money off of these grieving people, you know?
Yeah, that's why like that's kind of a whole gray area. You know, you usually take those things with a grain of salt. I'm not going to say where I stand, but, you know, like, that's all I'm going to say. Some could be legit, because I've heard I heard 2 cases, actually, where they did use mediums. So, one was clearly a fraud, because she would give out tips, and somehow they would magically lead to something that would at least, she would give, like, vague areas, and they would turn out to at least have something, you know. So that's why she was able to slip by. But then they ended up calling her up again and be like, hey, we need a little something more than just like kind of vague. And she's like, okay, well, just give me some time and I'll let you know. I'll give you an area. And so she's like, okay, have you checked this this lake that's by this place? If you go there, you would be able to find the car and the body inside, you know. And pretty much like they'd set up this whole like excavation to raid that area, the lake, and I think it was maybe going on for a couple hours, and they found nothing at all. No car, no body, nothing. So after that, they pretty much said like, dude, you're a bunch of bullshit, you know. Like at that point, like you're not even like real. So they pretty much ended up like that was just kind of capped. So I think even the mayor had like this big old like thing going on to be like, hey, this is where we're gonna find the body today, this and that, like giving a whole spiel and speech and everything, and just for it to turn out to be bullshit. And then there was a second one that I've heard where it also include a medium, and she actually did do something. Like she gave some, not so much vague, but just at the time when she could muster, like just as a quick like read, because it was just like the investigator would just go quickly like ask her for something, and then she would give them something, and that would be usually more than enough to point them in the right direction. But then they stopped kind of using her at the time, because I think the sheriff was like, they're not reliable as much as what we can do on our own, you know. So they kind of had to stop going to her. But then they stopped making progress after that. They're like, okay, yeah, like we're not getting anywhere. So he ended up like either convincing the chief, or he ended up just like going behind her back. He's like, hey, like I really need your help, like to just give me something, you know. And he went to her, and she's like, okay, just let me do some of my things. I'll get back to you in a couple days or so. And she did, and she said, hey, there's a forest. It might have been a forest, and in that forest there's like a cabin, and like you will be able to find either the body. I can't remember. It was either the body or actual like material from the body. And so he was like, okay, I'll go look. And he went, and he ended up finding evidence, or if not the body itself being there, of the murdered victim.
Oh, and shit.
That's how they were able to like crack the case, and they found their missing victim because of the medium. So it's kind of like, like cases like that is kind of like, bro, like
it makes you think. Yeah there's like good and bad ones, like, and you never know, it could be like just the connection, like it could be a good connection or a bad connection. And like I know this is kind of getting off track, but it just reminds me of like there's this one case from Mr. Ballin, shout out Mr. Ballin, that made me actually think like, hey, this spirit stuff and reincarnation stuff might actually be credible. Because there's this one girl, and she was really sick, and the husband was like rushing to get to the house to like treat her, but unfortunately she died. But this wife, a bit of her characteristics, she wasn't really that good with speech, and she wasn't really that good with just like her IQ wasn't all there, she was like kind of just a stay-at-home wife, and just doing that like that's all she knew.
So basically she just knew how to cook. Gotcha.
Yeah. And when she died, everyone was all sad, and they're like, oh my gosh, let's go to their house to like pay our respects, because in their tradition the wife is left in the home for a couple days before her funeral. And while they were there, like, grieving, all of a sudden she got up from her resting area, and she was like barely surviving. She was like, oh, I'm hungry, I want food, I want water. And everyone was shocked. They're like, holy shit, you've been presumably dead for so and so days, yet you're awake. I mean, nonetheless, they gave her food, they gave her water to recover, and then sure enough, she made a full recovery. But she has some different characteristics. She learned how to speak like fluently in different languages. She learned how to do things out of her norm, which was accounting and numbers. She was really good at that. They made it a point to see some doctors about it. One of the doctors was her relative, and she was like, oh my gosh, it's you, uncle. And he was like, what are you talking about? I've never met you. It's like, yeah, I know so and so and so and so. She was giving him names, and he was like, whoa, this is crazy. Let me go ahead and bring in the people she's referencing. And sure enough, they did. And yeah, they had a whole reconnection. And sure enough, they determined that she was a spirit and took over the wife's body, and she was a whole, and she was basically reborn again. And she actually had the memories intact, and she lived her days. Isn't that wild? That kind of made me think like, Jesus, reincarnation might be real, or like spiritualism. Because remember how I said the husband was rushing to get to the house?
Yeah.
Well, apparently while he was rushing to get to the house, he felt some weight behind him, and he never knew like what that weight was, but he just kept on rushing because he kept on focusing on his wife. And as he was rushing, he kept on seeing like his neighbors looking at him ugly. Like he'd be like, oh hey, there's my neighbor Josh or whatever, but he looked at him like with the ugly face, and he was like, I wonder what that's about. He kept on going. He saw his next neighbor, and she was out and about, and she looked at him with the same ugly expression, like, oh, like, what the heck? And he was like, whoa, like, what did I do to get these faces pointed at me and these scowls? But he didn't care. He kept on going. He kept on going. But sure enough, later on, they said the reason why they gave him those faces because they saw a woman in the back of his bike, and they thought he was cheating, knowing he had a wife. But in reality, he didn't have anyone in the back of his bike. It was probably the spirit riding along with him. And as soon as he got to the house, that spirit transferred into his wife's body. And sure enough, yeah, this girl literally said that too. She was like, yeah, I was floating along in the spiritual world, and I took a ride with this guy on the bike. She went into the house with him, saw the wife, and tried to merge with her body, and sure enough, it worked.
The hell?
Right? That's so crazy.
Yeah, shit. Because, I mean, I wouldn't even be able to debunk that one. Like, I was going to try to debunk it. I was be like, oh, maybe she just, like, had a factory reset. You know what I mean? Like, I think that is possible. When you temporarily die, your DNA memory, certain things can be shifted. You know what I mean? And maybe she was just tired of being, like, that stay-at-home wife, so she kind of just ostrated something. She looked up history or something on the doctor, and that's why, you know what I mean? But I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, there's many things that could be said to it, but that honestly sounds like a pretty well put together story, and
it's pretty solid.
Yeah, it is.
She retained all other memories of her past life. She pointed out all these family members. It's just so like, geez, it makes you think, you know?
Yeah, no, that's fucking crazy. We gonna be doing a giveaway when we hit 50 subs. $20 to 2 lucky winners.
We're becoming Mr. Beast once we hit 50 subs. So, you know, obviously subscribe, comment. If you comment, hey, we might be, you know, picking favorites over here.
A better chance to get something.
Yeah, you might have a better chance. That's all I'm gonna say. Hey, we forgot to do the shout outs. Oh my god. Shout out to the Robloxians. We got Blair. We got Sharpie. We got that one dude that was playing Courtney or Cortland. We got shout out to Cortland.
Cortland. You know who you is.
Yeah, for real. That was fun. Stay, please. We need y'all.
And anybody else that we missed, y'all are cool.
But no, you know how it is. It's been something sick with your boy
Lil Jips, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.